I wanted to give you a couple of hints with the homework on the actual first programming project where we're going to create the quiz. Make sure you get some basic idea of how to approach this problem. So I'm going to start out here in the idle editor with the interpreter open to the left here. And we'll just kind of go through a few fundamental ideas on what's going on. Now, there are some things that you're going to want to take straight out of the textbook without any, you know, necessarily great understanding of what's going on. We can cover some of this stuff later. But on page 400 of the textbook is where we actually do some coding where we're opening a file and reading the information in. So obviously the quiz.txt file is where all of your data is, and it is out there. And hopefully by this point you've maybe taken a look at it, and so you know what the format of that particular text is. So I'm going to put a comment in here and call it quiz project number 1, and we're going to begin by reading in the quiz.txt file into a list. So we're going to work with the list construct here, and you're basically going to copy the information, like I said, out of page 400. So we're going to use infile, which is just a random name or input file, keyword of open, and then we're going to give it in quotes the name of our text file. So quiz.txt was the name of the file that you will have downloaded off of the Moodle, and we're going to open it in read mode. Now they use single quotes here, so I'm going to go ahead and follow that convention. And then our next line is going to be whatever particular list name we want to use. We can call it whatever we want. This is a random thing, so I'm just going to call it quiz data. I suppose we could use the Camelback notation here. And then this is just line.rstrip. This is going to strip off the new lines from the tail end of each line. And this is then a for loop. This is a shorthand version of for, basically saying for every line that's in file. So do this for every single line. Read it in and stick it into our list object called quiz data. And then we need to be nice and close the file. I guess that's actually a function there, close. And that does it. So it's only 3 lines to read the entire file and put the entire file into a list element that we can then begin to manipulate. All right, so from there, the obvious thing is to begin to at least confirm somehow that we have this data at our disposal that we can use. So let's just verify some data to work with. And we're going to do that very simply with a print statement. We're going to say print, and if you recall, the syntax for looking at a list thing would be to give the list object, quiz data, but then which element of quiz data do we want to look at? Let's say that we want to look at the very first line. Well, the very first line is going to be a index position of 0, right? So you remember your indexes. And realistically, that should be enough. So let's do this. Let's save this. We'll say File, Save As, and yes, no, we're not going to save it there. And navigate to the Python folder, and we'll save it as, we'll just call it Quiz Program, and it'll automatically give it the Python extension, and then we're going to run it. We'll hit F5, and let's see what happens. Oh, we get an error. And our error says that in line number 3, in file open quiz.txt, it says file not found. There is no such file or directory quiz.txt. Well, that's a good reason for it to fail, because I didn't bother to copy quiz.txt into the same folder that my program is in. Now, if you recall, back when we were talking about absolute path names and relative path names for files, when we were talking about website, and if we wanted our, for instance, an image file to be accessible in a code that we were doing for chapter 4, we had to specifically reference the path to get to that file. In other words, that it was in /images and then / the file name. Well, we pretty much have to do the same thing here. You're either going to have to completely reference where that file is, or you're going to have to make sure that the quiz.txt file is in the exact same folder as your Python program, which is probably the simplest thing to do. So I'm going to go and find that and move it in there. So as I look here, I see, oh yes, it's in a subfolder called quiz. So it's actually not quite where I wanted it. I really need to have it back up here in the same place that my program is. So now quiz.txt is resident in the same folder. So let's go back then and run this again. So we'll come back. We don't need to save anything. We're just going to run it again. We'll hit the F5. And yeah, this time it restarts over here on the left and seems to go through and actually prints out an A. Well, that looks pretty good. Is that actually the first line in quiz.txt? Let's open quiz.txt up here and take a look at it. Yeah, it looks like that is actually the first line in there. So the first line, which we've referenced with the index of 0, is here. And we see that the remaining format is the question followed by the 4 possible answers. Remember, this is a multiple choice. And then it moves on to the next question. So let's pop those back out of the way and go over to our interpreter here and let's experiment a little bit. Let's try printing quiz data in the square brackets. We'll try and grab everything from the beginning down to the end of the question here. Let's see. So if we print that, we get A and which board, and oh, we're missing 2 of the answers. So I guess this would actually be 6. So you kind of see, I'm just kind of working this as I go. I mean, I don't have to be super precise. I can use the interpreter to kind of figure out where I'm at. So if I print that, I see now I have defined the index range from 0 to 6, which is going to give me in the first element the answer to the question. Second element is going to be the question itself. And then the last 4 are the actual questions. So it would make sense then at this point if I came over here, we'll get rid of this, and let's say that we wanted to say print the first question. Let's see, we probably should give the user a little bit of text. It says, welcome to our quiz. And then we're going to print the first question is, and how do we reference then that question? Well, simply using the positional index of, where was it? It wasn't 0, it was 1, right? So 1, close the print statement. Then we need to capture, or well, actually we need to print out the remaining, the multiple choice bit of this. So we can say A, whoops, we can say A quiz data, and which one is this going to be? This is going to be the first possible answer, so it should be the one right after. So it should be 2. And hopefully you're beginning to get the idea here, what's involved in this. And there's obviously different ways we could do it. We could step through it individually, each one, or there are ways you can combine the information, and so you can do it all at once. How you approach the problem is up to you. I'm not going to tell you that there's one right way or one wrong way to do it. But if I'll do a Control S to save that, I'll execute it. Um, as you can see, it says, welcome to our quiz. First question is, which sport uses the term love? And it pops out the first choice. So, ideally you want to be able to, put out all the choices there. And then you want to get some input from the user. You have to collect their input. So you're going to be asking them, once you get all the information out, user choice is going to be equal to some kind of an input statement. So we're going to do an input and ask, what is your answer? Like, oops, forgot the quotes there, like so. So when that gets executed in the variable user choice, we're now going to have what they picked. Was it A? Was it B? Was it C? And then we're going to have to go on and use our if-then statement like we just did in our previous example to determine if they gave us the correct answer. Then you also are going to want to maintain some kind of a score. So you need to increment perhaps a variable that is right answers or wrong answers, or however you choose to do it. But I just wanted to give you that quick heads up and just kind of get you started a little bit on how to think about the program and make sure that you understood how to open the file and how to access the elements that would be in the file. So from here, I'll go ahead and let you figure out the best solution to this little programming project.